We are back at Maserati of Central Florida with this, the Maserati MC20. Technically, and I will fight you on this one, technically Maserati's first mid-engined supercar. Now I know you're gonna say, no, Bora, no, that was a GT car. Merak, no, really slow, definitely not a supercar. MC12, close but no cigar, that was an Enzo, repurposed for the sake of homologating the MC12 GT1. So this is the first ever Maserati mid-engined supercar with its own dedicated engine on top of that. So I know what you're thinking, but this is a 296 motor without all the electrical fancy stuff. Not true. Maserati swears the Nettuno is its own bespoke design. I'll take their word on it. What do we think? Oh, wow. First of all, the past 20 years of Maserati has been a little storied, right? Let's put it this way. In my opinion, Maserati's kind of been put back on the map thanks to a little show called Entourage. Now, if anybody watched Entourage on HBO 20 years ago, they might remember the quadruport being featured pretty prominently in one of the seasons. And a lot of people said, well, what is that? Well, it's a Maserati. And in my opinion, for the kids growing up in the 90s and 2000s, that was kind of a moment, a defining moment for people and the Maserati brand. But from some point in the 70s, 80s, 90s, going from ownership to ownership to ownership, whether it was Citroen or it was Chrysler, Maserati kind of lost their way. But this is where they make up for it. For starters, we have a design language that is unique to Maserati. It still harkens back to some of the past designs. For example, the Trident hasn't really changed all much. It just looks a lot better and a lot cooler. You've got carbon fiber everywhere. Overall, the front end is beautiful. I cannot fault this car for its design. Almost any angle you look at this car, I can't fault it. On top of that, you've got this. Butterfly doors. Doors of a true exotic. Let's bring the camera a little closer.
Let's take a look at
some of these carbon fiber details all throughout the door. This whole door has exposed carbon. Now follow me back this way. You've got the prominent air intake right over here, and there's a very sculpted line. Honestly, if there's anybody out there that could tell me that there's something wrong with the design of this car, I will have to pay for your optometrist visit. You've got the engine cover with the Maserati Trident cut out in it. It looks so cool. The Nettuno sits really down low in the subframe back here, almost as low as a 296. The rear end is all carbon fiber. This car is spec'd with a lot of carbon fiber features. The taillights are extremely wide, really giving a sense of this car's width. All in all, I have to say, I love the way this car looks. This might be one of the best looking supercars on the road, bar none. So let's take a look at the frunk of the Maserati. And there is none. There's no frunk because there's actually storage space in the back. It's not a whole lot. It's very, very small. So this is a very purpose-built supercar. So you couldn't go grocery shopping in this car if you wanted to. You could barely probably fit a book bag or two in here. So not exactly meant for any kind of adventures. Let's jump in to the Maserati MC20. You don't have a traditional door handle here. You've got buttons. So you press the button inside the door handle and it opens as such. Inside the Maserati MC20 is a very, very simple affair, actually. I do love it, by the way. I like that it's very driver-oriented. The screen is not completely plastered with crazy options and surrounded by an insane amount of buttons. Everything is well organized. In fact, it kind of reminds me a little bit of a McLaren interior. If this screen were vertically mounted, it would look a lot like a McLaren's interior, but it's not. It's horizontal or landscape. Very simple right here. You've got your window switches, radio controls over here, volume as well. You've got a driving mode selector, so you can go from GT Sport, Corsa, ESC off, or wet, Steering wheel, also relatively simple. You've got cruise control on one side, got volume buttons on the other side, Bluetooth, voice assist, launch control, start stop button. And over here, your display is somewhat configurable. With the stalks over here, there's a button on both sides. So to configure what you want to see, you just press on a button on the side of the stalk and it sorts through the menus as such. All depends on what you want. Now, if you hold it, it'll open up the navigation like that. Hold it again and it'll go back to your display, your standard display. Same thing goes for this side. You go from tire pressure to nothing, brake and gas pressure, boost and torque, and then your car diagnostics. It'll tell you if your engine, transmission are hot, cold, or okay. Everything is running okay, and then you've got tire pressures. The screen, if you happen to watch the Maserati Grecale video that I had done, this screen, or this infotainment system, and the software is essentially borrowed from that. This is a Stellantis product. You can find it at a handful of Chryslers and Dodges, etc., newer ones. And it's very responsive. It is fantastic to use. There is almost no delay. You can open up, let's say, this is a great test. Open up the nav. See how well that responds. Zoom, pinch, flick, everything just responds immediately to your touch. So, moving on, you've got carbon fiber here, contrast stitching, wonderful, wonderful dashboard, Alcantara in the headliner as well. It's a little too dark, so the camera won't pick that up. You've got some really cool seat customization features. This just happens to be a dark gray with blue in it, with blue inserts, which I think is a very nice color combo. Quality of materials is very, very high. There are some simple plastics here and there, but nothing that is of concern, especially for a car that starts at over $200,000. You've even got the AC vents finished in Alcantara. So this is a very high-spec car. But the fact that you can do all these things is a testament to what Maserati's trying to accomplish. Overall, wonderful interior. And in case you were wondering, yes, Maserati is still using the buttons in order to open the door. All right, we are in the MC20. We are going to take it for a drive. We're going to see how it handles. We're going to see how it accelerates. It's a very interesting experience for me. I'm very much looking forward to this. I have a McLaren 570S, and to me, this is effectively its direct competitor, or now the Artura is. Here we go. Right now, I'm just in GT mode. But I will drive it in manual. Initial impressions, the induction noises are right there over your ear. I love that. So the direct competitor to this car would be a McLaren 570S, but now it would be the McLaren Artura because the 570S is out of production. And both are V6s, both are twin turbo. The Artura, though, has some electric assist. This is purely internal combustion. 620 horsepower from a 3-liter. This is called the Nettuno, which means Neptune in Italian, but it's also a port city, or it's a beach city in Italy as well. So I'm not sure what their intention on naming this engine was. Visibility in this car, using this rear view mirror, is horrendously, but hilariously bad. But you have this rear view camera over here, which makes up for it. It's a little weird, takes some time to get used to, but it works. Car's been well warmed up. It's very hardy. Now we're gonna take it through my usual little road where there are some rumble strips, there are some turns, there are some bumps, and that'll kind of give me an idea of how well this car copes with certain types of driving, whether it's day-to-day driving, spirited driving, city driving. It is quiet in here. It's a lot quieter than I thought it would be. All right, so we're gonna go into Corsa. Excuse me, we're gonna go into Sport. We're going into Sport mode. And we're gonna take a turn. Wow. Steering is really quick. Nicely ratioed steering rack. It responds to very small inputs. And here we go. Those are rumble strips. Suspension's pretty solid. It's very, very controlled. Let's go to GT over these rumble strips. GT would be the comfort mode, effectively, in this car. So we're gonna hit some more rumble strips in comfort mode. That is fantastic. I drove a handful of other cars through those rumble strips. Some were SUVs that really chattered up the entire cabin, and doing this in a supercar, and that's probably going to come off in camera too. You barely heard that. We barely felt it. So terrifically balanced suspension. I am really impressed right now from the few minutes that I've driven this car. Rear end is squirrely, not a bad thing. You can actually feel it moving with you as opposed to kind of trying to kill you. So what I find interesting is that despite the lack of cargo space or storage space, this is a pretty comfortable car. I could definitely see myself taking this on a trip or an adventure somewhere and driving it for a handful of hours and not being bored or tired or in pain, because these seats are really nice. They're well bolstered. They are very comfortable. The leather is terrific quality. And I was told that the Alcantara lined vents over here, that's standard. And that is such a neat touch. Very neat touch. So huge props to Maserati on that one. Man, I love the induction noises in the back over here. Right over you, right behind your head. Feeding directly into your ears. Very cool. Power! Wow! We're gonna go around a turn. Oh, this is incredible. This steering is fantastic. I can't believe how well balanced this car is. I really can't. I wasn't expecting this. I would have expected this from a Ferrari, which is really par for course. Woo. So, it sounds really good. I really do like that sound. I know a lot of people kind of poo-poo a V6, twin turbo, etc., but if you make it sound great, what's the problem? And Maserati's done that. They gave you all the fun noises that a V6 can make. And let's not forget that the world is obsessed with twin turbo 6 cylinders, 2JZs, etc., right? Because of the cool and fun noises that they make. A V6 isn't inherently a bad sounding engine, or an i6 is not an inherently bad sounding engine. We love inline sixes. Our BMWs have provided us endless amounts of entertainment and YouTube videos for us to kind of Google and all that stuff. And I don't really mind the shift to V6s or 6 cylinders in general, as long as they make them sound good. I think Maserati's done a great job of giving us all the fun and thrills of a built 6-cylinder engine that we would have gone absolutely gaga for in the early 2000s, that all the super guys, etc., they would have posted their builds and they would have been the talk of the town. A bit of a double standard there, I think, with the car community. It's nothing inherently wrong with having a crazy powerful 6-cylinder engine making over 600 horsepower on a 3,000 and some odd 3,400 pound car. Just went over a few bumps there, some speed bumps. In sport mode, the car handled them just fine. Just fine. Again, I could have done that in GT, which would have been even more comfortable. But I think this is such a well-developed suspension. It really does feel like Maserati spent a lot of time developing this chassis on both the track as well as the streets. I am surprised at how much I like this car. I'm surprised at how much I feel connected with this car. Quarter mile, 11 seconds, about almost flat. High 10s, 11 flat. Trap speed, 130 to 131 miles per hour. That is about as fast as a Huracan, a standard Huracan, not a Performante or anything like that. And that's still plenty quick. And let's face it, at a price that's just over 200,000 starting, you're getting a lot of car, a lot of car. If you wanted to get this level of performance, like I said, you'd have to get a Huracan. And I would take this over a Huracan any day. Yeah, V10 and all that stuff, that's wonderful. First of all, the doors go up on this car. That in itself is a huge plus, okay? Second of all, this car doesn't share parts with an Audi. That to me is another big thing. I am very much a proponent of exclusivity. That matters to me. I don't really like cars that share a lot of parts with, dare I say it, lesser vehicles. You know, I had an R8, my brother has a Huracan, and I love them. I love the cars. I think they're terrific. But every time I drove my R8, I really got this feeling that I was just driving a Lamborghini, and I thought that felt cool. Now, look at it from the perspective of a Lamborghini owner. They don't want to think that they're driving an Audi. And so here I am, driving this Maserati, and there's nothing that I feel like I'm driving. I'm driving a Maserati. There's nothing else that looks like it, that has this motor, that sounds like it. It's its own bespoke creation. I applaud Maserati for that, and I applaud Ferrari for not getting involved. So I just put the car into Corsa mode, and instantly what I notice is that the idle goes up. It's at about 1100 RPM. The tach changes. It becomes more of a F1 style tach. I'm not going to push it. This isn't my car. I would love to thank the person who let me borrow this car, and I'd love to thank Maserati for arranging that as well. Oh, okay, yeah, that's a big difference. So there is a noticeable difference from going from sport to Corsa, and that difference would be throttle response. Steering got even tighter. The suspension's gotten much firmer. So if I was impressed earlier on, going around some of those turns, I'm going to be more impressed in a couple of seconds over here. Downshift, downshift. Turn. Yep, that's tight. Yes. This would be a fun car to take to a Cars and Coffee, or to get some breakfast, maybe a little bagel run. All right, here we go. Another little turn. We're going. Woo. Mamma mia. Yeah. I would love to take this car out on a track. To me, in my head, my McLaren 570S has thus far been one of my favorite supercars, exotics to drive. And I've driven so many at this point now. This has really jumped up that ladder of just blowing me away, essentially. I'm really impressed. I would love to see a slightly higher spec version of this car that makes maybe 50 more horsepower, like a speciale version of some sort. Versione speciale, right, as Ferrari would call it. So I am a tuner by nature. I started out in the JDM world. You know, I had a 350Z, I had a 370Z, I had a 335i, so I was moving up. So I kind of left the JDM stuff and went to get into the German cars. And I've tuned every one of them. I just did. I had an F-Type R, I tuned that. An XKRS, I tuned that. And I had a regular XKR earlier on, I tuned that. I had an Infiniti M56S, and I tuned that. There is basically nothing that I bought and didn't tune. Fortunately, I didn't blow any of them up. I just really enjoy extracting more power out of vehicles, and I try to be pretty safe about it. And I have tuner friends, or I have a tuner do it. My McLaren, same thing. I did an exhaust, downpipes. Now I'm in the process of doing a mild tune because I don't want to go crazy. That car is plenty fast as it is. It only weighs 3,000 pounds and it makes 600 horsepower as is right now. Don't need to go all out on that one, but this would be an ideal candidate for me to find a tuner and play with it. Now, I don't want to encourage any of that kind of stuff. If you own one of these cars outright, you can get some more power out of this thing. I probably would. I don't think this is a slow car, but I think there's a tremendous amount of potential in it. It looks beautiful. It drives wonderful. The suspension is perfectly balanced. The steering response is crisp. I can't think of anything bad to say about this car. I'm in love. This is a great car. So I just went from Sport into Corsa one more time, and I pushed the suspension button in the middle of the dial. And what that does is actually can ease off on the suspension's stiffness or firmness. You can actually have a very, very touchy throttle and performance dynamic, but you can soften up the suspension, which actually makes sense because there are a lot of tracks out there that have, Sebring for example, that are very, very bumpy, that a car might not benefit from being overly dampened or overly firm. It could disrupt the car's balance essentially. So to soften up the suspension on a track like Sebring might actually be beneficial, or any track that's very bumpy in general. So I really like that feature. McLaren does something similar where you can separate your performance. You can turn up the handling and powertrain configurations individually of each other. And so you can essentially do the exact same thing here with the Maserati MC20. And by the way, I'd also like to mention that this whole time I've been recording, I have not heard one single rattle in this cabin. So build quality is spectacular. This car is so well built. If this was a $300,000 car starting, I would say it's still worth it. To summarize everything, sounds cool, drives wonderfully, incredible suspension, incredible design, beautiful interior, simplified, straight to the point, driver focused, and the price is just right. This car nails it in almost every single category. If it had a little more cargo room, if it had something that you could fit back there, this car would be a no-brainer. But if you don't really need that much cargo capacity and you're looking for a true supercar experience, this is the car. You want this. You really, really want one of these. And again, with all that said, if you like supercars, if you like Maseratis, maybe you like that green McLaren, like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for watching.